Good evening to one and all. I am Dr. Prashant Devkare from Medical Affairs Team, Sun Pharma. It gives me immense pleasure to extend to you all a warm welcome on behalf of Sun Pharma. In our fight against the pandemic, doctors and healthcare professionals have been lifeline to many. Their service, despite their risk of their health and the safety of their loved ones, is an inspiration to all. On July 1st, as India celebrated Doctors' Day, Sun Family launched Sankalp, an initiative for the welfare of the doctors, their families, and the communities in India. Sankalp is a tribute to these heroes for their selfless act of sacrifice and kindness. To know more about this initiative, we would take you all through a small video.
Oxygen levels are dropping drastically. Take it to emergency. Patient coming in is 40 years old with 100 degrees.
Who is she?
My wife.
Mom, my best friend.
My guide.
My daughter-in-law.
My child.
A doctor's smile sparks off 100 smiles. And as a promise to keep their smiles going, this Doctor's Day, Sun Pharma is proud to introduce Sankalp, an initiative dedicated to doctors, donation of COVID-19 medicines, educational aid for doctors' children, postdoctorate educational sponsorship, mental health support for doctors. Sun Pharma, reaching people, touching lives.
Welcome back once again. So under this initiative, we have launched currently mental health webinars and mental health counseling for the doctors and their families. So talking about the webinars, a series of webinars have been planned to educate the clinicians and their families associated with COVID duties. It will include real-life case studies and offer practical tips for their well-being. The speakers include experts from the field of national disasters like earthquakes, cyclones, droughts, and more importantly, COVID-19. To know more about this webinars as well as counseling, I would request the audience to please visit our website www.sunpharmasankalp.com. So now, as promised, today we begin with our first webinar on mental health for doctors. The topic for today's session is Mind, Moods and Medical Practice 2021-24. And I am very much fortunate to introduce our guest speaker, who is a renowned psychiatrist with extensive experience in the field of mental health, especially in connection with the disasters. He holds a postgraduate degree in psychological medicine and a postgraduate diploma in comparative mythology from Bombay University. He has immense experience in school mental health and has conducted hundreds of workshops for students, teachers, and head of educational institutions for more than 2 decades. He is actively engaged with the various schools and colleges to promote awareness on suicide prevention and rights of children. His petition with Maharashtra Human Rights Commission has helped to abolish the segregation practiced in the schools. His latest petition in 2015 in the Bombay High Court on learning disabilities have facilitated the starting of learning disability detection centers in every district of Maharashtra. He has enormous experience in the field of disaster and mental health and has worked with the victims of Marathwada earthquake, Kandla cyclone and the riots affected in Gujarat. He has been appointed as a member of National Testing Agency by the Union Cabinet on the behalf of Human Resource Development Ministry. As a trainer and a researcher, he has conducted hundreds of training sessions for different professions in the country, including medical profession. So please help me in welcoming the eminent personality who has dedicated his life for the welfare, emotional well-being, and the safety of others, Dr. Harish Shetty. It is really our privilege and honor to have you, sir. So, after the presentation, we'll be having a short Q&A session, and I request our audience to please type in their queries and questions in the chat box. So now I request, sir, to please take over and enlighten us. So can you share your screen now? Yes.
Good evening, friends, and good to be with doctors across the country from various disciplines. Having addressing a lot of doctors who are psychiatrists, meeting doctors from across different disciplines is a pleasure and an honor too. COVID has taught us a lot of lessons. It has caused a lot of agony. It has also caused a lot of mixed feelings, anger, joy of surviving the virus, envy because somebody in your family passed away but somebody else survived, relief when you found that your RT-PCR is negative, and all doctors and their families are actually looking at coming back to life. Let me finish the evidence right at front. The evidence as of now, as far as mental health consequences are concerned, is three things work: perception of safety, being connected to the world around, connectivity with the world around, and number three is non-psychiatric interventions also have been found to be very useful. A meta-analysis of all the studies done in Southeast Asia, 60,000 participants, 40% had anxiety, 30% had depression. In Japan, number of suicides have increased. And so the Ministry of Loneliness has also been established. Britain has one. Australia has had a mental health minister. We are asking for a mental health minister also. In this cabinet, we could not get through, but slowly we will. It's not all dark. It's not all gloom. It's also bloom time for all of us, which means 50% would not suffer from anything, but the other 50% would have to be very careful. And when I say this, I would honestly fold my hands and thank all the COVID warriors in this audience and outside for doing yeoman service to my country and to people across the world. I will also pay my condolences to a lot of people who have passed away. In my state, at least 1 lakh. To all the family members among the viewers who have passed away, and we'll talk about that in a short time. But let me share that I would be happy to answer your questions if the doubts are not cleared, and it's impossible to clear all your doubts. But I will pick up some concepts and share it with you all. As far as I'm concerned, I've conducted a lot of workshops, both offline and online, for corona warriors, nurses, housekeeping staff, front office staff, and name the people who have been working with the corona cases. Before I start, I would like to say that locked minds are time bombs. Diffuse it early, lest it explodes inside you. It's very important to understand this sentence. And my dear doctors, remember, all the victims and the families with mental health issues will not only go to a psychiatrist, they will come to you. They'll come to the surgeon, they'll come to the physician, they'll come to the gynecologist, they'll come to the skin doctors, neurologists, and many others. So be prepared for a mental health avalanche. Be prepared for a mental health avalanche and be prepared to face it as well as resolve it. So when I begin, I would like to say that this pandemic and other disasters are very different. They are very different. They're not the same as the earthquakes we had, floods we had, cyclones we had, house collapse we had, riots we had. It is different in 6 ways. In other places, you always hear it's all because of God's wish. I still remember all my experiences. Most of them would say it's God's wish. It's not our fault. It's not the fault of the government. It's all God's wish. We'll survive if God was there, if God wishes. and we won't if God would not wish. But here, it's all about science. It's not about fatalism. A fatalistic attitude is everything is predetermined and so not changeable. But here, people of science told all the Maulavis, the priests of different religions, that they have to close their temples, mosques, churches, and gurudwaras and other places because this is a disaster related to science. The second most important difference we all need to understand, and if you understand these differences, 6 differences, we will understand the magnitude and what we're going to face in our practice in the days to come. Every disaster may have a pre-impact phase. For example, the earthquake at Latur had small tremors across 1 year in 92, and they had an earthquake, major earthquake in 93, September 30th. Similarly, 2001 in Bush, they had an earthquake, but they did not have a pre-impact phase. All disasters may not have a pre-impact phase. Then you have an impact phase. Disaster strikes. Then you have an immediate post-impact phase and a late post-impact phase. Remember, the impact phase is always short. A few minutes to a few hours to a few days. A cyclone, few days. A few hours. A flood could be few days. But in COVID disaster, it's across 15 months that the impact phase has lasted. COVID is ferociously attacking the human race across the globe for the last 15 months. Longer the impact phase, bigger the anxiety. Longer the impact phase, bigger the anxiety. And what is also very important is when the anxiety increases, the mental health consequences will be bigger. And impact phase being long, we'll see a lot of catastrophic mental health consequences. Huge numbers. 8,000 died, 8,000 plus died at Latur. More than 1 lakh have died in Maharashtra, and more than 3 to 4 lakhs have died in India. So huge numbers. The fourth important difference is, in every disaster, if you have somebody in the hospital, you'll be there. You'll kiss the victim, you'll hold the victim, you'll take care of the victim, you'll escort the victim to the loo. But here, we are supposed to be isolating the victim and we are far away from our loved ones. That causes agony both to the close relative and the patient. Fifth is the virus is invisible. Earthquake is visible. Flood is visible. Cyclone is visible. Here the virus is invisible, and invisibility of the virus magnifies the fear, and that is one of the most important differences. And the last is, well, the mask was sold in black, oxygen was sold in black, and so many things happened. And vaccine hesitancy was provoked by so many leaders across the country. They are COVID terrorists. And I do not know how many people died because people said vaccines are not good. How many people may not have taken the vaccines. And so these are the 6 basic differences between the earlier disaster and the older disaster. Something changed in all of us. Some of us became very, very existentially very soft. What's the point in fighting? Some became very hard and they had a sense of hatred. And these are those people who never got oxygen, probably never got a bed, and probably died also because of not getting any solace. But many valued their spouse. Many valued their family. So many of us valued small things which we got around the time of disaster. We valued the air we breathe. We valued our oxygenators, and we valued little things which friends gave us or touched us with their action. Many came back to hobbies, many chased small joys, and all the aggressive ambitions of many people went down. And this is a list I made after talking to thousands of doctors across the country in various workshops. But there are many other changes which also happen. So can we bounce back is a question. Can we bounce back? Is it easy? That's a very big question we all are asking ourselves. And let us look at this. What are the 3 common fears we had across time? Most of us had. I would not say everybody. There are many doctors who wore their mask on their cheeks. There was one doctor in a very major hospital in Bombay who went inside the hospital without a mask. He was stopped by the doctor and he was given a mask to wear. So there are others who have different forms of optimism. A rational optimism is important for us to use all the protection as with respect to the virus. So the fear of the virus, a very big fear across time, fear of future and fear of death. And when these three fears come together, what happens is we go back to our Stone Ages. In the Stone Age, amygdaloid was very important. Amygdaloid helped us from being away from danger. It helped us fight animals in the jungle. It helped us being very, very aware. And the amygdaloid helped us with the fight-flight reaction. I would say fight, flight, freeze. Also, and amygdaloid slowly was challenged across this 15 months because there was fear across time. And that fear would mean our hypothalamus-pituitary axis was stretched continuously. It is like somebody putting a gun on your head across 15 months and not firing the bullet. It's also somebody saying that we'll open the sluice gates. We'll not open the sluice gates of the dam so that the village would be flooded, and you would always be on the edge, waiting for something to happen to you. So stress continuous, and amygdaloid also was involved, as well as the HP axis. And so what happened? There were sleep issues. The commonest symptoms we see now are sleep issues. Lack of concentration. COVID anxiety syndrome is a reality. Irritability, grief, and bad memories. Sleep issues, how do we treat them? Don't push a benzodiazepine without reason. First, ask them to keep away from their screens after 5 o'clock. Ask them not to fight inside the house after 6. No caffeine after 6:37. And as far as possible, yoga nidra, relaxation, or even if they do not improve with that, screen for lowered melatonin, screen for the volume of chat inside the house. And if that is so, if sleep is still an issue, you can give zolpidem, or you can also give a small dose of benzodiazepines or a small dose of tricyclics. You can also use melatonin in many patients. And apart from yoga nidra, relaxation, massage, exercise, a good bath at night, probably some of us also prescribe milk with honey. But I would say that relaxing the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system, cutting down the noradrenaline adrenaline drive would help people to relax. But if they don't, remember, do not hesitate to give them a medication. Lack of concentration is a consequence of lack of sleep, and also lack of concentration is again a consequence of stress. Anxiety, well, if they do not get well with small interventions, do not hesitate to see to it that you provide a small anxiolytic, a small tricyclic, or an SSRI in a very small dose. Irritability can be a window to depression. People who are irritable may have already lapsed into depression. Remember, what is stress and depression? Stress is strain of the mind. Depression is fracture of the mind. Stress is man ka sprain, in the sense, man ka moch, they say in Hindi, man ka lachak, and depression is fracture. When there's chronic anxiety all the time, and the amygdaloid and the HP axis fighting, sometimes they give up. And that's the time when depression actually sets in. There's something about learned helplessness also in the disaster, which means, jo hoega, hoega, whatever happen will happen. It's not in our hands at all, and let it happen. We are destined to face all this. And there's something that is learned helplessness. Exactly as when men beat up their wives, after some time, the wives say, "This is my life, this is the truth," and they continue being abused. At the same time, they feel it is normal, and that's what happens. So if you do not manage stress and anxiety, you will see that your patients will get depressed, or you will get depressed. Grief in a lot of patients who have lost their lives, in a lot of families who have lost their lives, in a lot of doctors' families who have actually lost their life. The grief is big. Why? Because unanticipated death, probably sudden, and probably had no logic at all. Couple got admitted, one died, one survived. The entire family got admitted, 3 survived, 2 died. So this is a massive disaster because this unexpected catastrophe, and this can be described as outside the range of human experience. Bad memories. If you have survived in the ICU, you get memories, bad, difficult memories, and you wake up at night with a nightmare. Treating them early will prevent PTSD. So it's extremely important to actually pay a lot of attention to these symptoms. Don't brush it under the carpet. Don't say that it will go away very easily. And just look at the doctors who have actually passed away. IM has put a big picture which includes all the doctors in phase 1. More doctors died in phase 2. Let me share the anatomy of the Pathy triad. I'll give you a story. A man was told that his neighbor passed away. The neighbor and this man were great friends. And he felt sad, but after feeling sad, he felt very numb. Numb in the sense there was a layer of a film around his mind, and he would not experience the sadness. When you don't experience the sadness, you become apathetic. You become distant, indifferent to suffering around you. When a lot of people die, apathy is also one of the consequences. And because you filter the sadness, you block the sadness, you don't experience sadness, and you build a film around your mind because you do not want to experience any negative emotions, which is also probably a method to protect yourself, you become apathetic. When the man called me and said, "What should I do?" I said, "How do you feel?" He said, "Initially I felt sad. We played cricket together in the compound. We played bridge also in his house, and we have had enough meals in each other's house. Initially I felt sad, but suddenly I felt scared and I blocked my sadness completely." I asked him, "What do you think you should do?" He said, "I should actually talk to his spouse or talk to his family and share my sadness." What is very important is experiencing your sadness and sharing your sadness is important. I'll come to that very soon. Well, if you feel sad and if you share, you have empathy. But in this disaster, apathy and antipathy also has been seen. There are a lot of sunshine stories where hundreds of people have shared empathy across borders. We have read about it, we have heard about it, but apathy and antipathy are equally prevalent. I'll tell you what is antipathy. Well, a mother wants to go to the hospital to see his brother who's recovered from COVID but still is in ICU, is in the non-COVID ICU. The mother is called by the doctor for sharing details about his condition. When the mother starts going, 3 kids stop her. One kid, 22-year-old, the other 18 and the 16. They said, "You cannot go. We are concerned about you." He's inside, he's safe, but we do not want to go. And she says, "I want to go. I want to hear from the doctor what's happening, and I want to meet my brother because he was out of COVID 14 days, 18 days, but he is now inside because his lungs have become stiff." And mother says, "I will go." There's a big ruckus in the house. All the 3 kids are not able to actually feel or even empathize with their mother's bonding and love with her sibling. And she gets shocked. She calls me, "What should I do?" I said, "Sit down with them, hear them out completely." And when these 3 kids shared, they said, "No, we do not want you to die. We do not want you to actually take any risk." And this was at the peak of the second wave. But she said she would take all precautions, go in the car, drive the car, probably wear a PPE suit if you're so scared. But they said, "No, you cannot do. This is antipathy." And the mother said, "What would you do to each other if one of you are sick in a similar circumstance? Will you go and see your sibling?" They had no answer. So we see a lot of apathy, a lot of antipathy. And please, all these issues you'll have to address in your practice. You'll also see a lot of anger, where a sister calls up the brother who's hospitalized in a dome and says, "You are responsible for the death of my parents. They died in the dome." He was also admitted. And she says, "You are responsible because you went for work and you got the virus." So blaming each other inside the family is also a big problem, and that causes secondary mental health complications. And these things you'll be seeing in your family. Sometimes apathy, empathy, and antipathy can actually coexist. My dear friends, I was saying something. Empathy does not grow in sand. Empathy does not fall from the air. One is not born empathetic, but one can be born compassionate. Empathy is compassion in action. But remember, equanimity and sadness is important for empathy to grow. As sadness is the flower pot, empathy is the growing plant. And that is something you need to really understand. So when this mother went to the hospital against the wishes of the three girls did not speak to her for some days. Well, probably one of them understood partially, but the other two still held a lot of grudge and a lot of anger on her mother for probably not taking care of herself, which was actually not true. So a lot of complicated consequences are being seen in this entire process. My dear friends, across the country, all doctors, when your patients or when those who have faced mental health consequences, which is going to be very big, extremely big. India is preoccupied with saving lives. Saving lives is important, very important, but along that, you need to start healing minds very soon. You need to have plans in every state for mental health intervention. It's not difficult at all. I have written to the central government and the state government with a plan which is doable and implementable. Life cannot run with only hospitals in Delhi or in Bangalore. 85% of medical practice is in private. So the government in the state as well as center need to actually visualize a bigger scene and take all the medical practitioners into confidence, people into confidence, psychologists, psychiatrists, medical social workers, mental health soldiers and counselors, and build a robust plan across 6 months to 1 year to prevent mental health consequences or treat mental health consequences. Then we will bring down the mental health burden. It will improve the productivity of the country and will not leave invisible scars. Remember, the virus is invisible and the mental health consequences are also visible. And for every person who shows mental health treatment hesitancy, there's vaccine hesitancy and this mental health treatment hesitancy, tell them this: mind is not made of iron or steel. It's made of neurons, which can go wrong. You need to nourish it always. And you also need to treat it. Mind is not made of iron or steel. It's made of neurons. You need to nourish it and also treat it. Coming back to the amygdaloid. In a disaster with an impact phase going long, with amygdaloid challenge all the time, amygdaloid overcompensates for the prefrontal cortex. Amygdaloid is much more active than the prefrontal cortex. And when the amygdaloid is overactive, there can be irritability, anger, there can be a host of behaviors. And as I've said, stress will be visible and it may be unresolvable if the person is not alert. So amygdaloid is more active than the prefrontal cortex, as you all know. Amygdaloid was used in the Stone Age to protect the human race from animals, being alert with the bow and arrow or the axe to kill the animals and prevent any danger and loss to the human being. And later, after the Stone Age, when we started becoming farmers and initiated agrarian work, our amygdaloid calmed down. As of now, if I have to give you a simple example, those who are mufat and fatkal are those whose amygdaloid is very active. And those who get emotionally hijacked with even a small provocation and shout and scream, and they are not taken very seriously. Even if they say the content of what they talk is true, they are not taken very seriously because their tone and their attitude and their assault is very strong. So amygdaloid works much more than the prefrontal cortex. So what calms down the amygdaloid? My dear friends, meditation exercise calms down the amygdaloid. Honestly saying, enough evidence. Any form of meditation, but yoga is the king of all meditation. Vipassana is the queen of all meditation. Patanjali and Bhagwan Buddha were the best mental health professionals across the globe, across the universe, across time. They gave us two gifts. Vipassana, also known as mindfulness, for which you have to pay across the world. Vipassana is free of cost across all the centers in the world. Yoga, again, Patanjali gave us this. So remember, meditation may appear very simple. It may appear very uncomplicated. It may appear very small, but it will calm down your amygdaloid. It will help the hippocampus function much better. Remember, in depression and in severe stress, your brain cells can be lost. So with meditation exercise, cortisol goes down, In stress, there's a cortisol munching. You do a lot of things which actually aggravate stress, increases weight, and cause a lot of lifestyle changes and mental health consequences. So cortisol can go down with meditation exercise. Amygdala calms down. Hippocampus and prefrontal the functioning of hippocampus and prefrontal cortex also improves. My dear friends, I would share a story again. I still remember this beautiful story. It was 1 year after the earthquake at Latur. And we were in a meeting with senior government officers, and they were showing us all the houses built by NGOs and the government across all the villages. And the meeting began by a senior IAS officer saying that we have built houses, but as far as the emotional consequences are concerned, time is the best healer. I was younger those days, and I got up in that meeting and I said, sir, if the fan falls on your head right now, and if you start bleeding, will you just continue your lecture, see the blood, and say time is the best healer? No, you will go and seek intervention. In disaster, time is not always the best healer. You may have to seek interventions, which is very, very important. Remember to tell all those who have mental health consequences that time is not always the best healer. If they seek help and prevent dangerous mental consequences, their family life will improve, their ability to relate to family and friends will improve, their functioning will improve, the economic burden will go down because they'll be functional, and their quality of life will be top class. So time is not always the best healer. So what are the small things you can do? Dear doctors and your families, one sentence which I always say, my dear friends, I shared this sentence in a talk with senior management people in a hospital who have worked across the COVID for 2 years. I said, reciprocal, abundant appreciation even to strangers. Which means what? Which means if I hear a doctor from a different hospital has done some fantastic work, forget COVID, in any area of life. If I pick up my phone and wish him and congratulate him, appreciate him, I don't know him, he could be a stranger to me. He could be a Vatpa, and my Hindu Maushi in my hospital is one of the best Maushis, or we call them as housekeeping staff. And she's better than so many resident doctors in giving CPR. I appreciate her as and when I see her. Reciprocal, abundant appreciation even of strangers. What it does? It makes the other person feel nice. That's not the objective only. Prashansa to Prabhu ko bhi pyari hoti hai, but it actually opens your own heart. It makes you humble. It makes you joyful. It makes you meaningful, and you grow. When your meaning in life is better, mood is better, you slowly become and go into a trance state with the world around, and your connectivity across the cosmos with people is much better. Remember this phrase, reciprocal abundant appreciation. And it's happening. Doctors are practicing across each other. Never met each other for so long in big metros. They are talking to each other. Old resentments have died because Corona has united the world. Unfortunately, with a disaster, but let us hope that this virag is not Smashan virag, but it continues across time, and it changes the DNA of every doctor, his family member, his wife, his husband, and his family. My dear friends, again I re-emphasize reciprocal, abundant appreciation. Abundant is very important because Indians do not know how to appreciate. They all, even with the children, you got 99 in 100, very good, but your next exam is on the way. Your next exam is on the way. And remember, in the next exam, you might fall, so be careful. So abundant appreciation is no holds barred appreciation, which is very important. Doctors who are Corona warriors or who head Corona hospitals, where you have resident doctors, I remember my teachers who taught me well and who fed me well, or both taught as well as fed. Food for thought, good mental health, food for the belly with your seniors is great mental health. Because when you eat food, a resident's heart opens when he's eating good food. He shares, sir, you know what happened? That patient's close relative, I got very angry. I screamed at him. I was damn tired that day. And when you do that, senior doctor should understand that serve food as much as you can to your nurses, to your doctors, to your ward boys. They come together and they share and becomes a great family. Small things. There's such a small intervention which we can do in our workplaces. Well, so important for all of us to understand that when you work in the COVID environment and when you're going back to your work after the COVID 100th wave will go away, or even when the waves are on, remember working in pairs. You can never be a Hindi film hero who beats all the villains. Gone are the days. This time the virus is invisible. Working in pairs improves mental health of both the doctors. Going together to their own clinics, maybe practicing opposite each other, but going together sometimes, having a cup of tea just before you start. So important. So important. And sometimes it can be a pack of birds. 5 or 6 doctors start the day together with yoga or whatever, and then they go to their work. That again is a consequence of the corona. Corona has brought us away from isolation and made us understand that we are dependent on each other. Gone are the sentences which people always say. I am independent. Beneath the layers of independence are layers of dependence, which is important for us to understand. Pack of birds. Also, I think that is so important that we actually could be working as a pack of birds. At the same time, remember, if you are still in corona hospitals, celebrate life and death. No, it's not a very insensitive sentence. When I say celebrate life, be mindful when the patient goes home. And if you can escort one patient every day while they go home, the joy the patient will experience in the walk across 10 feet or 5 feet or even 15 feet, the words he or she going to say when she leaves, when he or she says bye, will last in your minds for life if you're mindful and aware. And that is one of the biggest acknowledgements, not your salary, not the awards given by governors or politicians, but the tata of a patient is the blessing. And always remember that when you say bye to a patient, the patient gets healed. When the patient smiles back at you, you get healed. And so that's it. So when somebody dies, handing over the body is done only by the nurse or a ward boy. Why not a doctor? Why do doctors only want to say bye to people who improve or leave VIPs up to the ambulance, or take videos and films only when patients are leaving and blow it up on social media? No. The doctor who has treated a patient may not be able to say bye to everybody, but once in a while, walk with the relative up to the ambulance with the body and say bye. That's one of the most touching gestures which the family will not forget. But at the same time, you find meaning in life that I did not succeed in this case. That's perfectly all right. But I'll keep working. Remember, celebrating life and death in this manner is important. Coffee, tea, and juice should flow all the time. And 2 important things for all doctors. Shower. If you're stressed 3 or 4 times, shower. It acts as Shirodhara sometimes. It acts as relaxing the scalp muscles. When those drops fall on your body, endorphins are released, and actually a lot of us feel better. Twice or thrice when you take shower bath, you'll feel your stress much less. Walking on a green patch, watching a green patch, pouring water into a vessel with a green plant. I every day pour water into a tulsi plant. It's beautiful. I've given it a name. I have a small kitchen garden. I've given it a name, and that I think is so important. Dinner time at home, doctors generally earlier would not talk to their spouse. Most of them come home and they actually are very tired, because when you're tired, you don't feel like talking. You feel very quiet and you don't feel like talking. You need silence. You sometimes lose yourself on a phone or on the screen. But nowadays, sharing one story alternate day with your spouse and your family, you know what happened? Some nice anecdote. It may not be that the patient praised you or succeeded. You did something big. Don't share your glories. Share your little things. Like the patient actually did not have money. And, my wife, I would not have allowed him to go without money. I would have asked him to pay the entire bill, but this time something has happened to me. I gave him a lot of concession and he went and it felt nice. Small anecdotal stories are extremely important. Extremely important. Very, 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 very important. And this I think is so, so good. Cuddling at night is a very peaceful activity if you're married. Cuddling is feeling the breath of each other on each other's face. Hugging loved ones without reason. And when I told this to a gang of doctors, they started hugging their wife and the kids when they left, and they started hugging without reason. And they said, "Abhi nahi karo, tumhari maa dekh rahi, your mother is watching me." But internally, they felt very nice. They might say, "Are you mad? What are you doing?" But internally, they feel very nice. Hugging is not a Western concept. It is a human concept. No country has a monopoly and a patent on hugging. You don't have to pay any royalty when you hug anybody. Do that, and you'll find that touch also changes your software. Humor, white and black. Black humor is, oh my God, you're so angry with the relative when he said everything wrong. So many corona warriors and nurses and what boys said, we feel very sad when we did everything for the doctor, but the doctor sent a lot of messages to his sister outside, and she fired us on the phone when we were sharing information. It happens. When you do a lot of good things, things can go wrong. My teacher once said, 50% of your patients will always praise you without reason. Do not let it go to your head, but feel nice. 50% will criticize you without reason. So share that black humor, which is very, very important. My dear friends, stand by your colleagues. No memos. Don't scapegoat. And remember, communication needs to be aligned. The resident doctor, the nurse, and the doctor saying the same thing. And here I would say doctors spend crores of rupees buying equipment, spend lakhs of rupees in actually skilling themselves, learning new skills, fellowship, but they don't spend even thousands to improve the communication protocols of their entire system. My dear friends, have audits and also reflect on the day. Most of the times when you start the day, your self-talk, what you tell yourself is so important at the start of the day because you're fighting the chatter in your brain. The chatter is, how long will this last? Will the third wave come? I heard that a 23-year-old man died. I heard that an 85-year-old man came home. We don't know what's happening. And that chatter can really pull you down. But we have enough conscience and we are conscious to tell our brain, when it is told good things, it stores those good things. When the brain is really told, I will do my best today. I will have a cup of tea with my teacher, my boss. I will have a cup of tea with my family before I leave. I'll talk nice things and I'll try and do my best, but I would like to smile as I enter my OPD, and I will not go alone. I will walk with one more person. Working in pairs is also very important. Telling good things. At night, when you're about to sleep, remember the unconscious, unconscious is open when you're about to fall asleep. Tell yourself good things. As the fan goes round, you will actually recall a lot of things which is happening. A lot of things which is happening, and that is what I think I should have given this molecule. I think I really was rude to that patient's relative in the ICU, and it's not intentional because we are not gods. But then automatically at night, when you open your eyes, awareness sets in, and you actually understand what is right and wrong. And in that audit, you slowly change. My dear friends, mind and body are in constant conversation. Equal attention to both helps immunity, health, and equanimity. What happens when there's a death in the family? Many of you may have lost your loved ones. I lost my mother, sister, and my brother. The sister alone with a nephew on the 6th day when she passed away. Remember, very difficult, extremely difficult. Which means what? Which means I was weeping like a child. My nephew was trying to give me solace. He was weeping like a child and I was giving him solace. As a psychiatrist, I learned one important thing. 2 or 3 things. The first one is, Nobody is the pillar in the house. I have taken care of my family for the last 30 years. I'm not supposed to cry. If I cry, everybody will fall. No. There are small pillars, medium pillars, and big pillars. And each pillar will actually comfort the other. Do not overestimate your capacity to take care of your family. And do not underestimate the capacities of others inside the family. Teach this to your patients. When somebody comes and says, "मैं घर का सबसे बड़ा हूँ," I am the eldest in the family. I've really taken care of this family for the last 30 years. I could not cry. I said, "No, Baba. Your wife will understand that you are normal. No spouse wants the other spouse to be God. Every spouse wants the other spouse to be normal." And if you have teenagers, and many people say, "I don't want to cry in front of my daughter. She'll feel bad." Nothing at all. Your teenager daughter wants a normal mother and normal father. It's so important to understand that one pillar can comfort the other, smaller pillars can comfort the bigger pillars can comfort the smaller pillars, and then grief is slowly resolved in that manner. When my brother passed away on the 40th day of being in the ICCU, we were shattered. But we never hid our feelings. There were a lot of regrets, a lot of pain, but we shared it all. We allowed ourselves to weep. There is no hierarchy. Somebody who's done MCH will be plus, DM will be lesser, MD will be no hierarchy. Well, your visiting card and your qualifications should not intervene when you're grieving. When you're grieving, you're as human as the rickshawala whose family passed away, or anybody in any social hierarchy who's passed away. So what is important is when there's death in the family, remember, the family that cries together heals together. Many pillars help each other, and that is so important. And in Hindi they say, "जो बह गया वो पानी है, जो रह गया वो जहर है." It's a beautiful saying. It encompasses the entire chapter of grief. I am not here to say that grief has many steps. Grief is cultural. It's different in different parts of the world, but the internal processes, as far as the body is concerned, are the same. So tears are liberating, never stop them. My dear friends, there are families who are extremely irritable. There are families who are extremely irritable in COVID. And I've seen those families. And I've seen there are three types of irritability. One is a family that is very silent and has never shared their fears. And when I ask them, why is it that you don't share your fears? They feel that when they share their fears, they'll become vulnerable. And if they are very vulnerable, their entire image in front of the other members of the family will go away. So they block their fears. When they block their fears can get converted into sympathy and pity. That can cause a lot of issues. Fears can also get converted into irritability and anger. Fears can also get converted into chronic anxiety. So I'll tell you a story. There was this senior vice president in a pharmaceutical company, a good friend. He said, "We have stopped talking. We only bite at each other. We only bark at each other." And he said, "I don't know how it all began. It started sometime in August 2020, and it continued for some time. And he shared this in 2020. And I knew him very well, very nice, compassionate, good human being, and an excellent professional. So I said, we can do one thing. You can," and they said he has the meals together. I told him, do one thing. Just tell your family on a WhatsApp in the family group, between you, few families, I am very worried about the state of affairs in the world. I'm very scared if something happens to you, what will happen to the family? And I have a lot of fear. I don't know. Can you help me? So the head of the family asks his spouse, who's a housewife, homemaker, and his two children, "Can you help me?" Now, will that cause anxiety in others? Not really. When you actually share your feelings, you get support. When you inform your feelings, you're isolated. We're all scared, the world is scared, I'm also scared. That is information. There's no tone of emotion there. But when you share your feelings, that can you help me? I'm scared. And when somebody as tall as a vice president with multiple achievements and degrees becomes vulnerable, others lower in the hierarchy, in the imaginary hierarchy, also become vulnerable. Evolution starts from the top, revolution starts from below. So vulnerability, if shown by leaders, by chairmen, and vulnerability would not mean that helpless vulnerability, but an empowering vulnerability, which means I would like to actually share and take help, and I will take help and I'll get well. That is empowering vulnerability. But when you actually share a helpless vulnerability, you are in trouble. So when he said this, the second of the sibling, of the second of the child, the younger one, 12-year-old, started smirking and smiling while having dinner with the father. And he said, are you actually scared, or you're trying to play a googly on us? He said, I'm actually scared. And then the elder child said, Dada, I'm also scared. If something happens to you, what will happen to us? And the little boy said, if something happens to me, what will happen to all of you? And the mom said, I feel the same. If something happens to me, who will take care of you all? And the mom, typical Indian, said, I don't want to die before. I don't want I would like to die before anybody else and not. You know how Indian women are, the sacrificial martyr. So irritability went away. Irritability may have just one cause, blocking the fears of sharing the disaster. So remember, helpless vulnerability can provoke anxiety, because anxiety travels much faster than the coronavirus. But an empowering vulnerability, when you seek help, share and seek help, only sharing knows. Sharing and seeking help brought down the irritability in the family. My dear friends, ultimately, at the end of the day, you have to share awareness, peace and equanimity. Which means what? Which means when you start your practice, you may have your EMI. Don't be ashamed. Don't say, Maine aaj tak, till today, my EMIs, I have never faltered on my EMIs. 10th of every month, my EMI would go to the bank. It's perfectly all right. You're not God's gift to the human race. No issue at all. You can go to the bank and say, defer this. Give me a new plan. I've not practiced for the last 12 months. I'm not able to pay your EMI for the hospital or for the house I've taken, for the car. I'll pay you slowly. No shame. Shame increases mental health consequences. Honesty and sharing and empowered sharing brings down mental health consequences. And so, doctors, tell your wife also, get one money to pay the EMI and be honest about it. Kuch mardangi kam nahi hoti hai. And when you do that, you pass on the culture of sharing to your own family members and to your children. They see, my father is not ashamed to say that he has no money to pay the EMI now. He will learn. It's an empowering vulnerability, not a helpless vulnerability, where you share and find ways of solving the problem. And that's what you need to do. When you go back to your clinic, you might wonder, will patients come to me or not? Well, if you have a serene face and a calm exterior, and a serene interior and a calm interior, people will flock, because everybody likes to see a calm doctor. Everybody likes to see a doctor whose state of being is very powerful. So awareness exercises are important. Chasing peace and equanimity is important, which means any form of meditation will help you with your amygdala and your prefrontal cortex, but also will help you to feel peaceful. Not only it will change the biochemistry of the brain, and the so many stress circuits will become healthy, but it also give you an exterior which helps you to be effective and not only good. So when I say awareness and equanimity, I would like to ask you, what are the metaphorical learnings from the virus? For me, there are three. Number one, virus comes with a different avatar every few months. Alpha, beta, gamma, theta, whatever. We need to adapt to the different settings of the virus, which means it teaches us to adapt to newer circumstances. You can't say, "Main aisa hi karta hu. This is the way I am. I can't change." No, Gautam Buddha said, स्वभाव में भी परिवर्तन आ सकता है. Which means what is very important for you to understand is that virus taught us to adapt. Virus came with different avatars for the worst, and we will come with different avatars for the best, not only to fight the virus, but enrich and improve our lives. Many other metaphorical learnings from the virus, and that is, virus is very focused when it has to do what it has to do. And we need to be as focused when we need to do what it has to do. And I said in my earlier video, which may have come to you, that the most complex problems have simple solutions. And what are the simple solutions for the virus? Simple mask, vaccine, distance, and soap. Similarly, in this disaster, my dear friends, most of us do not know much, though the human race cracked the code of the virus and came with the vaccine in a year's time. That is the victory of the human race, of the resilience of the human race. But a lot of innovations will come from different people inside your family. Just because you're a doctor, do not underestimate the innovations by your children, by your maidservant, by your relatives, and by your spouse or your parents. So have a democratic environment in the house, and you'll find small things will come up from anywhere, because ultimately, J. Krishnamurti said once, long ago, in his book, The Last Talks, that's the only book which is very simple to read. The simplest minds are the most profound. So, my dear friends, when the dust settles, what is it that you want to inherit? Do you want to inherit a resilient brain and a resilient individual, or do you want to inherit yourself a stressed brain and a stressed individual? The choice is yours. You can choose what you want to be, and the most important things for you to choose would be my Panchamrut, which I have been sharing from March 2020. This Panchamrut is evidence-based, though I'm not keen enough to show you all the journal articles, because I feel in a talk like this, I should not give you milk, nor should I give you butter, nor should I give you buttermilk, but you should only get ghee. And the ghee is, yoga has been proved to calm down the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system and align it. Yoga has helped us to really align the mind and the body to each other, and align the mind and the body to the universe, calm down the amygdala, improve the prefrontal cortex, help the hippocampus to function well, so that your decision-making power is good, you are not emotionally hijacked, and your functions are very nice. Exercise dissolves fears, tears, and anger. Exercise also calms down your cortisol levels and your hypothalamo-pituitary axis. And I'm not saying it. Black Dog, the film in the WHO, has said that exercise dissolves fears, tears, and anger. That, doctors, you all know. If your cortisol range is high, you will rate the fridge at night. But if your cortisol is good, you'll eat mindfully and eat what is necessary. You know everything about sleep. It's not about architecture. It's not about arithmetic. It's about architecture. Dream, sleep, deep sleep. And you know what to do. And sleep also improves immunity. Kindness improves immunity. So, my dear friends, as I stop, I thank Sankalp for initiating this activity, providing mental webinars and counseling to you and your family members. It's a great initiative by this company. And I'm really delighted and happy that they have taken up this initiative in a very big way to help doctors across the country. My dear friends, as I stop, I would like to say 5 things. Number 1, remember to do your breath exercises. Number 2, cuddle your spouse and hug your family members as much as you can. Number 3, in spite of all these things, if your patients or you are not well, please go to a psychologist or a psychiatrist. And I repeat, mind is not made of iron and steel, it's made of neurons. Number 4, again, which is very important, is you can choose to inherit a distressed brain, or you can choose to inherit a rest, and the choice is yours. And number 5, remember, nothing is better than connectedness. Isolation, you fall. Being connected, you survive. And you do not only exist, but you live. You do not only survive, but you prosper. With this, with folded hands, I thank you all for being in the seminar. I would request you to share this small video, this video of the seminar across to your friends in your district, in your cities, in your villages, and your states. And see this video again if you like, and share it with all the family members. I thank you all for being with us on this beautiful day from 7 p.m. on July 10th. I thank you for your listening and for your patience.
Thank you so much for your excellent and fabulous presentation. Enlightened us with the mental health care and also provide us with the mantras provided to take care of ourselves. And the one which I remember is be honest, start sharing, and most importantly, seek help whenever required. So now we move on to the next part. You can see there is a lot of questions which have come up. So I'll be asking one question one by one. So coming to the first question, it is, can a person with illness, anxiety disorder on medications like Duzela, clomipramine, and clonazepam can gradually reduce the medicine and eventually stop fully?
Very good question. Congratulations for that question. It depends upon case by case. So I would not be able to give you a generalized answer. So if the anxiety slowly decreases, the psychiatrist might take a decision to slowly decrease the molecules. It also depends upon the number of stressors you're facing. It also depends upon your personality traits. It also depends upon your support which you have. But if you're very determined, you can try all alternative measures along with that yoga, CBT with a psychologist or any other means. But remember, never go to a psychiatrist or a doctor saying, "Mujhe dawa se chutkara do." Dawa Mukta Bharat will not happen. It's the psychiatrist or the doctor or the physician who will decide how long you need to take the medicines. I always tell patients, when you go to the doctor, say that you desire to decrease the medicines, but it's your judgment of mine. Please help me to remain functional across my life, across my work, because I need to be functional to earn my bread. And for that, you give me whatever you think is appropriate, and I'm going to take it. So never have a desire to decrease your medicines, but do not have an obsession to stop your medicines, and do not boast. If you have stopped the medicines, maybe your anxiety was very mild. Fleeting anxiety, it may not be necessary for you to take medicine, but focus on health. Don't focus obsessively on stopping medications. Case by case, the psychiatrist can decide.
Thank you, sir. Coming to the next question. So there is this question, considering the rise in the deaths during second wave of COVID-19, what is the best way to break the bad news to the relatives of the patient who died due to COVID-19?
Well, I was involved in this. When the husband died, the wife is in the ICU, and I was given the responsibility. I said when to share and when to tell them. I think the most important thing is you need to decide case by case. I still remember a wife passed away in a hospital. The husband was admitted in another hospital. Till the husband recovered from the ICU, till the husband was better, we did not share the information. And the day we shared the information to the 74-year-old, we saw that all the 3 kids were there. The physician was there, so that his heart was monitored, and we shared the information. So you need to make a call. What exactly is the best time? And do not just break the news and leave. Break the news and allow the person to grieve, allow the person to ask all his questions or her questions continuously. See that the close relatives are also supported, and that's what it is. I know of a child whose parents died and they did not know when to break the information. The mother died and they did not know when to break the information. The child was with her grandmother. The father was in Gulf. He could not come. And we had to actually sit down with the child, have the father on a Zoom, and slowly break the news. If it's a very old man who has to be told that both his kids have passed away, you need to have a different methodology. But remember, a psychologist or a psychiatrist a physician and family members all should come together, seeing the cultural understanding of grief, seeing the social situation of the family, seeing the amount of support the family has, and you need to break the news at some point of time, but you cannot avoid breaking the news at all.
Right, sir. So now coming to the next question. The question is, sir, how to stop overthinking when someone is COVID positive?
Well, there are 5 ways. Remember, the battle sometimes is won in the mind. 5 ways. Number 1, fact against rumor. Fact is the Brahmastra of Ram, and the rumor is the Brahmastra of Ravan. So fact should always fight rumors. Number 1. Number 2, constant reassurance of the person by close relatives and by the doctor. Remember, the physician treating should also use reflective communication and not reflexive communication. Reflexive communication is answering the question. Reflective communication, adding feeling content to your answer. I know that your oxygen is 10 liters and your HRCT was 14 out of 25, but we are trying to do our best. We are maintaining your parameters well, and we'll be here with you till then. And remember, a patient in hospital should be given blind optimism. Be blindly optimistic to the patient in the hospital. With the close members of the family, be rationally optimistic. Reckless optimism is very bad. So blind optimism with the person who has the illness, and rational optimism with the person who's the close member of the family, giving him the correct picture, but see to it that your communication is reflective, not reflexive, not reactive, not repressive, and not refractory.
Right, sir. And coming to the next one, sir. So the question is, how to maintain work-life balance during such stressful situations of pandemic?
Well. I've conducted enough seminars on work-life balance. All doctors, are you listening? There is no work-life balance. Imbalance is the truth. Finding balance in imbalance is the key. Which means chase little joys, chase small joys. If you have little moments, have some fun. Even if you have had a death in the family some time ago, do not die with guilt that you did not take care of the patient. You have done your best. Corona killed the patient, not you or the other doctor. And see what is happening around. It's not you. You have done your best to the best of your ability. So around that time, don't have an environment, even after 2 months of absolute grief, out of guilt, we do not want to enjoy. Small joys, little joys. Have a bath, have a coffee with your friend, share a joke, talk to your friend. Number 2, if you are guilty about the fact that somebody passed away and you did not, and you feel, I should have gone instead of him, still remember, small joy. And if you are a medical doctor and very stressed, in spite of your daily schedule, find 15 minutes to do something different. Pick up the phone and talk to them about your life before. Pick up the phone and say something stupid. Pick up the phone and say what Biden is doing. He's withdrawn from Afghanistan without reason. He's left Afghanistan to those demons. Pick up the phone and talk some jokes about anybody. Talk to your loved one. Talk to your langotiya. And remember one thing, all doctors. You all have to have a safe space where you can be emotionally nude, where you can pick up the phone and talk to the gentleman who was with you from MBBS or from school, and you are not conscious about your visiting card and your designation, and try to be emotionally nude as often as you can. Walk on the grass. So most important is, there is no work-life balance for a doctor in life. Imbalance is the truth. Finding balance and imbalance is the key. So chase small joys. Don't look for a big trip of 15 days to Maldives or to Uttaranchal. Everybody is going to Kasoli. हम 8 दिन जाएंगे. अरे 8 दिन जाने से पहले रोज 10 मिनट कुछ न कुछ करो ना यार. 10 मिनट कुछ न कुछ हंसो ना. So that is what is so important.
Very true, sir. So the next question is, it has been speculated that during the third wave, pediatric population will be affected the most, and counseling them has always been a challenge. So what is your take on that?
Honestly speaking, I'm not an expert to predict on the third wave, but I'll tell you the mental health aspect of it. In the first wave, we were reasonably prepared. In the second wave, we were caught with pants down. We did not anticipate that. Let us be honest. We are vaccinating the country at a great breakneck speed. And all doctors, thousands of doctors have not taken vaccine. My friend lost her educated sister and her sister's husband because they researched everywhere and they felt vaccines are dangerous. They died on the same day in the ICU in different two hospitals. So, my dear friends, honestly, for the third wave, we are prepared because we believe it will come, believe it will kill kids, and so there's a lot of preparation. So I don't think we need to talk to the kids as of now. We need to use all the three things: vaccine, 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 and follow the entire protocol of COVID across time. Don't scare the kids. Abhi tumhara मालूम है पढ़ेगा. If you don't study, third wave आएगा, गब्बर आएगा. No. Let them live. Allow them to play. And remember, my dear friends, schools are closed. So let your home be the school ground. Let your home be the school. Let your home be the office. But allow them to play inside the house. Let the balls break the glass. Let the house be not very perfect. An imperfect house is a happy house. An imperfect mother is a happy marriage. And see that they can do a lot of movement, physical, because movement improves mood. Isolation causes depression. So use very creative ways of seeing to it that they have fun, and don't be obsessed of appearing for every class online. कुछ क्लास बंक किया तो किसी के बाप का कुछ नहीं जाता है. आप लोग भी कहाँ स्कूल में रोज जाते तो nothing happens. Even if education is postponed for some time, nothing happens. Dreams can be postponed. They have to be protected and preserved for tomorrow. Today is only to save lives, live peacefully, and maintain your mental health so that yahan ki batti jali.
Very true, sir. So the next one is, what are the do's and don'ts while counseling COVID-19 patients and their relatives?
Very important. First, evaluate. Don't make stray sentences. तुम्हारा हिम्मत कम है इसके लिए तुमको anxiety होता है. You think a lot, so you get anxiety. These are the don'ts. Don't make these statements. You think a lot. Don't give examples of yourself. I've also had COVID. I'm free. COVID affects people differently. My auntie passed away. My brother passed away. My son had no symptoms at all and recovered in 25 days. I've admitted at least 200 patients. Most of them have gone home. Almost all of them have gone home. So every victim is different. So if somebody says, I've got pain all in the legs, and the wife says, I have no pain at all, he's acting, say that his pain is real. He may have pain all over, which may not respond to pregabalin, which may not respond to duloxetine. It may respond to amitriptyline. Check for symptoms of sadness to evaluate the patient, number one. Number two, ask them what they are doing. Yoga karega. They'll be doing a lot of other things which they would be doing. And then, when you finish your entire evaluation, remember, find out if it is a stress or if it's a fracture. If it is a disorder, anxiety disorder, you can screen depression on PHQ-9. You can call up a friendly psychiatrist and also find out if it's a stress, if it's a disorder. For stress, you might help them to share their fear, share their agony, improve their sleep hygiene, improve their diet, also help them to share their feelings. They might slowly recover. But if it is intractable insomnia, no sleep at all at night, sadness, wanting to die, crying spells, pain all over, night terrors, a lot of nightmares, and a lot of thoughts. Remember to not to be worried and give SSRIs, give tricyclics if they're safe, and see to it that you are on a call with a psychiatrist who supervises from a distance, and ask all of them if they have any ideas of harming themselves. I spoke to a man today from Delhi. He lost his wife and his wife, and he's saying, if you don't help me, doctor, I'll kill myself. I am only living for my daughter. If that is, medications will work at that point of time, and see to it that medication and counseling both are followed. If in your state you have no counselor, allow some gentleman or a lady from the family who can listen to the patient and see to it that he or she is supervised by medications. So, and I've shared the don'ts. Don't underestimate the issue. Don't trivialize. Don't really blame him for not being strong. Don't say, don't overthink. All those sentences should not be uttered.
Right. The next question is, any specific ways to reduce impulsive compulsive behavior?
Obsessive compulsive behavior, maybe.
Yeah,
Maybe.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So I have enough patients with excessive washing, and most of them are on behavior therapy and a small dose of medications. Sometimes they need a small dose of fluoxetine or paroxetine or fluoxamine, or any SSRI, acetalopram also, small dose. And then you have to use exposure and response prevention. Say, for example, I have a lady who did not go out of the house at all for a long time, and she didn't, and if she touches any knobs, she would again go and wash her hands. I would say, wash your hands once, and go into your room and just stay there. Wait for half an hour, allow the thoughts and feelings to come and go. And after that, don't watch, and you'll find your frequency of hand washing will actually go down. Touch a knob, but don't wash your hands for 1 hour and then go and wash it only once. And you'll find the frequency of washing hands after the knob. Along with that, a lot of counseling, a lot of education, and a lot of factual information. And she would not go out of the house. And I would say that go out of the door up to the staircase for 5 days and come back. After 5 days, go down 1 floor and come back. And in 3 months' time, she could go 1 furlong outside the house, and then those things big. But most of the times, in patients who are severe, you will need SSRIs, you might need tricyclics, you might need a little small dose of benzodiazepines, and see to it that you follow the patient till he or she recovers. But if the patient has had past history of any OCD, then the symptoms will be much higher. If that past history of depression, then the symptoms will be much higher. You have to be very careful. But see that if it's complicated, a psychiatrist is the best person to see.
right. So the last question, I guess, during second wave, we have seen lot of resources crunch, especially oxygen, hospital beds, and medicines. So the question is how to deal with the patients and their relatives during such desperate times.
Well, that's the most difficult state when you have not got all the resources and you have lost somebody, and the person has passed away in front of you where he was gasping and he died in front of you. These people will have the most serious mental health consequences. You can't do anything about the past, and you can't say it's all God's wish. Very genuine empathy that whatever happened is very sad. Allowing them to share all the anger, their sadness, and their grief across time. Allowing them to also understand that it's not their fault. Many close members of the family feel very, very guilty and say that it's not their fault. What killed them was the overwhelming transmissibility of the virus, which overwhelmed all systems, not only in India, across the world. There are bodies which are not yet buried in the United States of America, lying in containers. As Devi Shetty said, it overwhelmed the entire universe. So in that context, you are not guilty, you are not responsible. Your close relative died because of the virus, and let them share their woes. And slowly, when the pain is shared, the stories change. When the pain is shared, the stories can get quarantined. Some of them would need counseling or psychotherapy. Some of them would also need a small dose of medication. But early intervention is important. If not, these families can have with high probability post-traumatic stress disorder or post-traumatic stress disorder with depression all their lives. Early intervention will help them recover.
Right. So coming to the one more question which has just popped up. What is the reason for black fungus infection in COVID patients?
I am not equipped to answer this, but a lot of scientists have said it could be because of steroids. Others have said it could be because of excessive intake of zinc. Honestly, I am not an expert to answer this. This question should be answered by a physician. But the point is, a lot of patients had black fungus, white fungus, and other funguses. and that was a complication of low immunity and probably steroids. And the last word on the treatment of COVID is still not made. After years, 3-4 years, we'll understand what worked, what did not work, what is it that we did right, and what is it that we did wrong. When COVID actually began, no doctor knew what to do. In all the hospitals, there were no protocols. Corona, we are still not ahead of the virus. We are still behind the virus. And maybe at some point of time, we'll run parallel of the virus, we'll overtake the virus, and we'll win over the virus. But as of now, we are very close to the virus. What works? Basically, immunity, and what works basically distance, vaccine, probably, and the vaccine which covers the face. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for answering the questions, sir. So with this, friends, we have come to the end of this session. And on behalf of Sun Pharma, I would like to thank our esteemed speaker, Dr. Harish Shetty, for sharing his enormous experience and providing valuable practical tips, which would help us in taking better self-care and provide effective patient care. I would also like to thank the valued audience for taking their time out this evening and honoring us with their presence. At the end, I would like to thank our entire backup team for their kind support in making this event possible. And there is one more news which I would like to share on the screen. So this is about our next upcoming webinar, which will be conducted on 17th of July, Saturday, from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. And the topic for this is post-COVID depression and COVID phobia. So I cordially invite all the doctors and their families to attend this session. Till then, thank you once again, and stay safe and take care. Thank you.